All right, we're back with more Factorio. Here we go. I am Pax. And today we are going to go over more of the space exploration base. And I wanted to talk then about the main Cars on Belts hub. So, yes, we are here at the main base, and as you can see, there's a bunch of cars just running around on belts, and this is actually dealing with all of our primary production of like tons and tons of things at the main hub. And just to get a sense of like how it works is that, yes, indeed, in Factorio, you can just put a car down and it will get moved by the belts. And you can use this. It's kind of an overpowered way to like do a lot of logistics. And the reason is because the cars have huge inventory. And as well, you can set the filters on the car's inventory to manage exactly the type of items you want to do. So here I've set the cars up to have, all the intermediate products for all of science, and do things for building cargo rocket sections and lots of logistics material. And some of the stuff was like trying to design things for the future. So like, I have the off-world resources on here as well, but we haven't started using or producing any of that, except for we do have the vulcanite and the cryonite, of course. But then basically then if you put the cars on a belt, and then you can actually access their inventory by putting a inserter down, but you don't want it to be touching the belt, but just always have it be one tile away from the belt, so you can see as the car go by, it kind of lights up. And that allows you to just pull on and off from the car inventory. And then you can see the cars are kind of coming by. The spacing is controlled by this timer circuit. So there's a little Factorio timer circuit that's pretty common, and we use this to space the cars out. So right now, all it does is there's a constant combinator here just outputting the signal C, and then this decider combinator is just counting up the signal. So it has a feedback loop, so that it's the output of the decider combinator is connected to the input. So every tick, this C will be added to the C from the previous tick. And so you can see the C will just count up continuously, one tick at a time. And then once it gets to the number, this number set here, 120, which you can set to be whatever you want to be, the counter will reset, right? So 120, there's 60 frames per second. So 120 gives us a spacing of 2 seconds. And then we just use this belt to, if I can access it here, if I could get it, it's underneath. Oh my gosh. Just gonna, hold on. Yes, cars, there we go. So you can see here that this transport belt is disabled, except for when the counter is below a certain number. So 15 works for the blue belts, but different speeds of belts need different numbers. And so that will pause the cars and keep them spaced out. And so now we have a car coming by every 2 seconds in this case. But then you can imagine like that gives us a ton of throughput, right? So we have 200 iron plate coming by every 2 seconds. So 100 iron plate per second is coming through. And that's just 2 of the stacks, and we have 80 stacks, right? So it's practically, an 80 lane logistics bus just flowing through on these cars. And so that gives us a ton and ton of throughput. And because we have so many different items, it's also like does a lot of the logistics for you. And so then we can send the cars through all this production and just have the inserters pull on and off of the cars and have them manage all of our production and logistics. And so then this is then the design of the main hub, is to then build all the buildings and build all the intermediate products for all the buildings, build things like solar panels and accumulators. We're building modules. We're building cargo rockets. We're building science. We're building these random things like text plates and belts and bots and everything you want, really. And it's pretty flexible and easy to expand. And as we go through the game, we'll just keep adding more and more production to the base, whatever else we might need, as long as we can, put the relevant items onto the cars. And so this allows us to build this pretty overpowered, logistics system as the main hub, and it's been working out really nicely. Then the cars also, what's also really great about them is they interface really well with the train network. And one of the reasons why they work so well is because inserters actually go a lot faster when they interact with kind of the chests and the train storage thing, and they don't have to touch the belts. So when they have to touch the belts, they get slowed down a lot, because it takes pretty significant amount of time for the inserter to drop all the stuff they have onto the belt. So, if this inserter was dropping 12 items onto a transport belt, it can only handle, first of all, it puts it all on one side. So that means it only can handle 15 divided by 2, 7.5 items per second. And so since you're just dropping 12 items, the inserter will spend, basically 1.5 seconds just dropping the items, not counting its, and then it takes a 0.5 seconds for it to swing back and forth. But when an inserter puts something into a chest or into a car, or onto a train for that matter, it drops the entire contents instantly. So then you get like a lot more throughput with the inserters if they interact with a car. And so then the trains here, the connection to the trains like this allows you to have also quite a bit of throughput. So then we can build using then, in combination with the logistics train network, we can build this. I built this, pretty insane train station to interface with the main hub, where each of these train stops can bring in multiple items. And so we have designs for kind of different numbers, like, so there's 3 inserters here and 6 inserters here, and this one has 4, and just like can do it in different amounts just to regulate the throughput of different items. But another thing to make the train stops work really well is to make sure that they stay balanced. And so there's also a circuit-based balancer here to keep the contents and the chest even. And the circuit-based balancer relies on basically, it's going to measure the amount in each chest, and then this little logic circuit is going to divide by this -4. And the reason it's -4 is because each item in this particular train station has 4 chests, right? So then by adding up all the values in the 4 chests and then dividing by -4, you get the average value and you make it negative. And then if you look at the inserters here on the output side, they are on the green wire getting this negative average, and then they're directly connected to the corresponding chests through the red wire. And so basically then the inserter has a condition where if, in this case, the heat shielding is greater than 0, which means the amount of heat shielding in this particular chest is greater than the average value in all the chests, only then will the inserter be enabled. So you can see this one's not enabled because it's 440, this one's 448, and so this one's enabled. And this little circuit logic allows you to keep these chests in balance because Because if you didn't have that, what usually would happen is the chests earlier, right along the belt, will have priority over the chests later in the belt. And so these will get emptied out first, and these will get emptied out much slower, and this will cause problems with the trains, and things go off balance. So the circuit balancer is pretty necessary. And then if there's just different numbers of chests, you can just change the number in the balancer to match. So that allows you to build different builds with different quantities and different levels of throughput. And this then is how we can connect to the trains and bring in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12 dozens of items, 25 items or so. And then the last thing I'll mention for the cars on belts is what I like to call the contraption. And one thing I'll warn you about with cars on belts is if they fall off the track, it can be very annoying. And so whenever they make a turn, they kind of risk falling off the track. And so then to prevent them from falling off the track, I usually put something in the way around every turn. And when they turn going in the long direction, usually use a power pole, because a power pole, it has a smaller hitbox, right? So you can walk through power poles, but you can't walk through chests, right? So, what? Okay, maybe you can. Maybe you can in this mod. Because I probably have squeak through on, but okay, never mind. But anyway, yeah, put a power pole here. That's the idea. And then on the long side, there's chests here preventing the cars from falling off the track. But then also there's this one belt that is disconnected and kind of pushing the car into these chests. And this little trick is super useful because it keeps the cars in the right spot on the track and always makes sure that they stay in the right spot. And so basically around every turn there is a power pole on the north-south side and a set of chests on the east-west side. So this would be there. I mean, see, it's fine. It's okay if it's not there, but it can get messed up. And yes, but then the contraption is really useful and necessary to make sure that the cars are always staying in alignment, and their inventories are also always accessible, and then also that they don't fall off the track. So just as a demonstration, if I say stood here and blocked a car, it worked that time. Yeah, there's certain ways where the cars will get bumped off the tracks, but I can't. Apparently it's too robust now. Cool, yeah, but then that is then the sense of the cars on belt system for the main hub. And yeah, it's really been carrying us for building all the science and doing some advanced stuff for us. And yeah, it's just a really fun way of building a hub that doesn't overly rely on logistics bots and robot networks. And of course I built this long before we had access to requester chests as well, so that you can do it earlier too. So that's another benefit of the cars on belts design. And yes, this also works in vanilla Factorio, so it's very much possible to build this just in normal Factorio. This is not a mod or anything. This is just how the normal game behaves, but I mean, the developers definitely intended for the belts to move cars, but I don't know if they ever intended for people to use them as part of the logistics network. And it's actually really overpowered, to be real. It's yes, we built an 80-lane bus right in this tiny amount of space, so that's kind of like what's going on with the main base and the cars on belts. But then, yeah, I think I'll call the session here. There you go, Factorio. I am Pax, and I'll see you in the next video.